Welcome into Layman's Mind. I'm your host Anna, and joining me today is Terry.
Hello.
A regular layman.
Yep.
Okay, so you brought up a topic that has affected Minecraft greatly a couple of years ago, actually, which is the Log4J vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
So how much do you know about it?
Not much. All I know is that something happens and apparently the attacker can get to the players or whoever was affected computer and do whatever they need to do into it.
Okay. Do you know like how it happens, or is it just a vague of like something happens in Minecraft and now somebody is compromised?
I wouldn't know exactly. It's more or less the point of I do know that a command happened in Minecraft, either be like the chat box or something else, and then obviously whatever the stuff works via whatever the program is, then eventually they get access. I'm not too sure how, either like logging their keystrokes or just able to execute a command of some sort. So I think maybe a script could be.
Okay, right. You're actually very close. We can drill down into what Log4j is, or otherwise known as Log4Shell, and then what are the base functionalities of the application. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah. So Log4j is a Apache product, which is an open source, and it allows for logging capabilities. So for example, let's say you are talking to somebody in chat.
Mm-hmm.
In order for the person to send it and for you to receive it, you need some sort of a middleman saying, I've received this information, send it on to somebody else. So if there was no logging involved, you wouldn't be able to recall what happened. It's almost like a browser history as well.
Okay.
So it's able to detect what's happened in the past and is able to relay it to the other side, as well as storing it on the server temporarily.
So it's like a cache in a sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the thing is, with Log4j, it's more of an interactive cache. There are 3 different components to it. So there's the loggers, so captures and logging information.
Mm-hmm.
There's the appenders, publishing logging information to multiple destinations, like in a chat or a public chat.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also the layouts, for emailing layout information in different styles.
Okay. So it's just some like Discord does the exact same, or it's just like Okay.
Yeah. Now it'll probably be using something else as a logging source.
Okay.
Because Apache provides Java application, and that'll be more that'll be regularly used with Java based sort of applications. It can interact with other stuff, but if the application itself is in Java, chances are you'll be using Log4j to interact with things.
Okay. Well, now that we're talking about the whole that you're using the chat example, what can we not just encrypt it, or is that like completely breaks the protocol itself? So generally how we have like when you're chatting to, for example, like WeChat or even sometimes Discord, sometimes we hear about, oh, the chat is encrypted. So does that break its functionality, do you think? Or do you think it's like, oh, it just doesn't work because of how it locks down the system, or it takes too long for the system to actually parse the information itself, like speak to each other? Or
Well, thinking about encryption of communication, that can be done from... The idea is the information is secret from end to end.
Mm-hmm.
That is the main idea of encryption. The thing with Log4j and what it's based on is how much it can interact with on a core level. So since it's an open source, it has a lot of capabilities. And some of the stuff it can interact with is a DNS, domain network service, or domain network resolution.
Okay.
So it can actually, if a particular string is sent, or a particular command is executed, you can say, oh, that is the name of your computer and this is your IP.
Ah, okay.
Okay. Another thing it can interact with is LDAP, which was lightweight directory protocol, which is also open source and is widely used between computers.
Okay.
So that's also able to do a level of identification. So end-to-end encryption is not going to necessarily secure it, because is it going to be encrypted end-to-end? Yeah. Somebody externally will not be able to kind of intervene, but it's just the effect that it has when it reaches the destination.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm probably thinking of like middleman attack rather than just a system that just has a middle man sort of like storage protocol to kind of go, okay, you're sending from me to here and you to here sort of thing.
Okay, so this now you've actually started on a point that I wanted to introduce here. So you have talked about the attack of man in the middle. This is not it.
Okay.
So this vulnerability is actually called remote code execution. So this can be sent from somebody, or so this can be sent from somebody to somebody. And the thing is, normally a chat log would say date, time, and then information encoded. And if it doesn't have any sort of identifiable Java protocol in it, is it just going to display it as text? It's like, oh, this is text, I can display it fine. The issue arises when somebody sends it a code, a piece of code, because it will look, say, okay, date, time, and then it will have, oh, this looks like an executable code. Let me just run it real quick.
Oh, okay. Oh, so basically you can kind of like, quote unquote, buffer text with executable, and it will go, oh, here's text. Oh, by the way, because it's with the text, let's just run this real quick. And then it executes.
Yeah. So it doesn't, there's other things that have this sort of remote code execution. This can also be done with kind of unprotected versions of websites. So I'm not sure if you've witnessed it or not, because I've done a little bit of pen testing myself. You're able to make JavaScripts. So let's say you're in a community post, and people are able to post anything they want.
Yeah.
And if the information is not being buffered, if the text is not being processed correctly, as in it's saying, when it's to being taken and saying, nope, this is plain text, display it as is, no kind of additional execution needed. If this sort of component is not protected, what you can happen to you is when you're going through a forum or something like that, somebody can post some malicious script in their comment, or maybe a bit of nuisance. And what that does is, a lot of the time, the telltale sign, well, the easiest thing they can do is give you a pop-up message.
Okay.
So when you're opening that page, rather than reading that string the person has provided in their comment as a post, it reads it as an executable. So rather than, in their box they'll have a blank, because there's no plain text there. The system doesn't recognize it as a plain text. And it just says, oh, somebody sends like an alert box.
Okay.
So this can be, so that is the most benign version. This can get further. People can get the IP, they can get cookies, they can get stuff from your browser that is accessible by it.
Okay, so you were talking about earlier about the whole targeting shenanigans. How does that work? Let's just say I'm playing a game of Minecraft and there's like multiple of us playing. If it's there's just like, oh, so how does that script work, and does it target just a singular, or does it target everyone that's there?
If, for example, you're playing in a private server, it would target everybody that's in that server. So whoever has Java running.
Okay.
So what the attacker would do, from my understanding, they'll start a return script, like a return window on their side. They'll start a listener, and they'll send a script in chat, which will be executed by people's. Yeah, it will be executed by the user's application, and that application will give a call script. So you'll have a listener, and then you have the caller.
Okay.
So essentially what it does, it would say, this is actually called the reverse shell. So rather than the attacker sending a shell to a user, getting him to open it up on their window, they're asking it to kind of be sent back to the attacker. They're saying like, I want to open my command shell, here's the access, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So within the comment they can post up in public chat, they can write this sort of return call, meaning that the attacker has now access to their system on the level that the Java, that the application is running on. So if Minecraft is running at an administrative level, they can get more access of what the person is using.
Okay. I'm just wondering, like, so it won't come up as text at all. It'll just be like any other command other than, like, for example, if you failed or not failed. But then again, I don't think anyone else other than yourself can say it. So is that how it works? Because I'm just trying to look at it as in like a chat log. Okay. So you said that it won't detect it as plain text because it's technically a command of some sort. So it will just run it without anyone seeing the command at all from anyone's end.
From what I remember, how it happened in Minecraft is it would still output it as text, but there's going to be a secondary function that says, actually, this is code, let me run it. That sort of thing. So to whoever is looking at it, as far as I remember, it kind of just looked like coded garble.
Oh, okay.
Like to a layperson, it wouldn't be anything coherent because it's a very long string. They'll just paste it in chat and it's going to output it to everybody else. But it would also run it on their machine.
Okay, so it's just like as if someone just face rolled the keyboards, essentially. Just random mashings. That's what it looked like in text. Okay.
Like you've seen code before.
Yeah.
Like if you look at it from an unfamiliar person's point of view, to use just like, I don't know what this is.
Yeah, but what I meant by it is like if it's somewhere to execute this code, let's just say, the fact that for example, if it was like an if statement or like the typical hello world, I could see that, could I? Because the way you're telling me before was, like for example the whole post
for the web interface
version, for example, because it doesn't see it in plain text, the comment post is empty. Is that the same case in Minecraft, let's just say, because this is the incident for Minecraft?
Yeah, well, with this one the situation's a little bit different.
Okay.
Because it does both.
Okay.
It will display it and it will run it.
Okay. So yeah, so that's what I'm thinking. It was like, oh, if someone sees that, unless it's like a really high like chat group, like there's a lot of people chatting at the same time, where you can just click it real quick and it'll just fly by everyone's head really quickly. You could see it, like for example, whatever hi David, or then a block of if or and statements or something like that as an example. Wouldn't that be easy enough to detect, or it's something even more gobbledygook, like, you know, the typical AS at NGJK whatever sort of way?
Like there's going to be a lot of kind of command quotation, like brackets, backward slashes,
that
stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it could look to somebody just like, oh, maybe somebody's doing something in parallel, like doing a bit of coding, you know, could have accidentally pasted it.
Okay. So it's kind of like at that point the user's awareness of said code. So I was like, oh, okay, it just seems like someone just accidentally hit something in here while doing something. So okay, so it can't be seen by all. Okay.
So I have actually a quick list here of Log4j vulnerabilities and what they can be used to perform. So one of them, like number 5, is actually denial of service, meaning that the client would crash or it would look to freeze. But during that time, the attacker could kind of jump away from the Minecraft client if they have a particular chain set up.
Okay.
So if they gain a foothold and they're quickly able to propagate, they can just hop onto something else that is system related.
Okay.
And once they're on the system, like they can be, if they're good, they can be kind of incognito there.
Okay, so this Log4j, so basically what they're doing is sending a spy into the person's computer and go, hey, give me the details of how to do what I want it to do, and just basically, okay, yeah, sure, here you go, just gives you the stuff, and then they can execute it from their end, correct?
Yep, pretty much.
So essentially they'll just have a monitor going, okay, so I got details from David's computer, let's just say, and so you can go, right, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, so they can do that from their end and they will affect their computer. Is there a limitation, or is that like a full free reign, or depending on settings, of course?
That's what actually I think caused it the this is what actually caused it the cyber vulnerability equivalent of like 9 out of 10, because there's like 10 is like really bad, like it's just could be absolutely devastating. I'd say either 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 is just how easy it was to execute it and how much control it had.
Okay. So how would you prevent it, for example? Like even on like a very basic level, is there a way to prevent this, or is it just like a one-way shop? So let's just say because it's Java, this will run regardless of what like firewall settings or something like that, or how does it work?
Okay, so in terms of protecting against that, it's a matter of patching. It's up to the Apache team to implement these levels of protection, of saying, this is log, this is not executable, don't put it on the machine. That's like, don't run it on the machine. It could be kind of that level, or anything that can be put into chat boxes. Immediately that is transcripted into, rather than copying it as plain text into the log, it can have some sort of quotation or something that to say denoted of breaking the scripting, if you know what I mean.
No, you're gonna go explain that a bit.
Okay. So in certain, for example, I'm going to go back to web servers.
Okay.
What those web servers can do is they can buffer their input. So in the most crude ways, they'll say they'll reject backslashes or anything that's commonly found in a coding language, in a particular coding language. It can do that. Or otherwise, what they can do is take the text, but rather than having it as a plain text, they can append it with stuff that would signal to the Java or to whatever system, you know what, this isn't actually code. Like you can start, it's not really executing it, just to prevent it from being executed.
So basically what they've done is just blacklist it, essentially.
Let's put it as buffer. Put it through a bit of a meat grinder, and like you put beef in, you kind of alter its texture a little bit. It's still beef, but it's might be minced beef.
Yeah.
So to kind of, you can't really make steak out of it anymore. Yeah. But it just exists in a different state. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And so they're trying to use that to trick the system.
Yeah. So to protect the system. That'll be one of the ways to do that.
Okay.
So, in terms of a developer that's using Log4j within their application, it's a matter of updating Log4j in their own environment, grabbing the latest source code. Another one would be the buffering one, or the reprocessing of the chat logs to make sure the system doesn't see it as an executable. Okay. As for a consumer, it's a matter of updating the software that they're using to the latest patch.
So apart from the software update, can, like, does the firewall or any of the home settings in the computer natively or can be done to prevent any of this? Like, for example, since you've earlier mentioned shell, I'm presuming that's PowerShell, sort of like the ultimate admin tool sort of thing, like command prompt and stuff like that. If we disable that, could they have access to that, or am I still screwed technically in the end?
Well, because Java's running on its own little executable, it's got its own return shell. I haven't actually dug that deep into it. So if you disable PowerShell, you have a higher likelihood of kind of stopping them.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So essentially what they're doing with this particular vulnerability is they're getting into Java and using Java as kind of the main host to do something else that's in your computer. But if you have your computer, let's just say, locked down, or in a virtual box, let's just say, then technically speaking, they can't go any further. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like, antivirus and anti-malware will usually work by signatures. So if they detect something that is a vulnerability or something that has a particular signature that equates to their database, they'll say this is a malware. But at this point, it's a little bit too late. The guy has been on your system, they've already scoped your system, and now they've downloaded something. So this is as far as it can go. One of the software we're actually working at in my company with the clients is McAfee EPO. So what that one does or can do is it can block certain functionality. So it will allow you to do the bare minimum you need to do your job and nothing else. Okay. So for example, if you try to start PowerShell, it'll say denied. The same thing can be done with other securities like group policies. So basically kind of like rules imposed on a computer. So a particular user can't start PowerShell, as you said. Or, for example, I can't let it read into memory, but then your game wouldn't work. Or it's just like restricting the rights that an application can do.
Yeah, it's like you can only view, you can't. It's like similar to like any Word document or PDF document. It's like you can have a look at this, but you're not allowed to alter it in any way. It's something similar to that. Yeah,
that could be also another approach. You can read but you can't write. You can look but you can't touch.
Fair enough. Okay. So is that the only thing that it can do so far? So as long as like Java patches it on their end and technically speaking this vulnerability is gone, or is it still like just more or less disabled, so to speak?
Well, once the Apache developers patch this, this application will no longer be present within Log4J until somebody else finds something else. So like the remote code execution is a very kind of common vulnerability. It can do a lot. Like once you gain access to somebody else's machine, you can do anything. And I think because Java runs with elevated permissions, it would be able to do that. So actually that kind of brings us back to core isolation, which was in our previous episode. So if you have core isolation present on your system, because they're running essentially in their separate bubbles, it wouldn't be able to access it as easily. So if somebody does get access to your computer, there's only a limited amount of things they can do. Like if you don't have much stuff running on it, it's just kind of the bare essentials. Like I mean, these days people have a bunch of junk installed on their computer, so other vulnerabilities can be found. But if it's just kind of you have your Minecraft application, somebody sends that string, and it won't be able to go any further because they're not allowed to interact with the Windows processing. They're not allowed to interact with the kernel applications.
So that also helps with like PowerShell if it feels, or does that bypass as well? In that case, would you have?
With the PowerShell, you can just do limited amount of things. It's still going to be restricted.
Huh. Okay, that works well. I think. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. I don't think no. No, I think that's pretty much it for the most part. Yeah.
What have you learned today?
Oh, too many things. Basically, disable everything. Don't go on internet.
Burn your computer.
Oh, yeah. Just hide back into your caves. Read your books.
I don't know. Those can be toxic as well.
What books have you been reading? Okay.
Anyway, thank you for joining me today in the discussion of Log4Shell.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
And I will see you next time.
Bye.